Hello everybody and welcome back to the video lecture series on microprocessors and microcontrollers. In our today's lecture, lecture number 7 of Unit 3, we shall talk about two of the serial communication protocol buses. We will check it out specifically, SPI bus, and then we will see how the serial communication UART takes place. Talking about the content of the today's lecture, as I just now told you, we will be talking about the onboard communication interfaces such as SPI bus, and then we will see the UART operations. But before this we start, let us have a brief recap of what we have seen in the previous class, that is the I2C protocol. So onboard communication interfaces, three of them, as we have earlier discussed, that we'll be checking out here. We have discussed I2C in the previous class, so we'll continue discussing SPI and UART today. In the I2C, we have seen that I2C is inter-integrated circuit bus structure. Here we have seen that it is a two-wire serial communication, something like this, where the master and slave communicates via these two lines. Actually, they communicate via one line SDA only, which carries the address of the slave from the master and also carries the data whenever the communication has to establish. The other one is a serial communication for providing the synchronization between the master and slave. So here the communication what is taking place is a synchronous serial communication. We have seen this the packet structure, the message structure in I2C. What all it contains? It contains the start condition, then the address of the slave which will be transmitted by the master will be there, and following that one the data frames will be there. Every frame will be separated by an acknowledgement bit. Obviously the receiving side will send an acknowledgement bit to the sender that it has received the correct address frame or the data frame. We have also seen the steps how to initiate this type of communication, how the master initiates this, and how the slave responds accordingly. And it's about all the control is about the master, whether the master wants to be a transmitter or it wants to be a receiver. Just listen from the slave, the data reading from the slave. So this read-write operation bit also will be the part of the address when the master will be sending to the slave, which will decide whether the direction of the communication will be from master to slave or slave to master. We have seen these conditions. Yeah, the start condition is there. Then we communicate the frames, address and data frames, and towards the end that's a stop condition where it master tells that the communication has to stop now. We have seen this bus configuration example also, where there are here two microcontrollers, microcontroller A, B, and a few peripherals connected, and how they are connected with this SDA and SCL lines. Okay, we have seen that it can be a one master, multiple slave, and it can be a multiple master, multiple slave type of communication also, which can be allowed in I2C communication. The advantages of I2C can be easily seen here. It only uses two wires, which is not the case in SPI. We will check it out here just as we start the SPI topic. It supports the multiple master and multiple slave type of a thing. Acknowledgement bit gives the confirmation whether each frame has been transferred successfully or not. Hardware is very less complicated compared to the UART. Okay, and it's well known and widely used protocol. Few disadvantages of them are listed here. Slower data transfer rates when compared to SPI. Yeah. So now let us talk about the SPI communication. SPI is a common communication protocol used in many different devices. For example, an SD card module is there, RFID cards are there. These all which we will be using this 2.4 gigahertz wireless transmission receiver. They all use the SPI type of communication. Though the SPI is a wireless, the wired communication, wireless protocol also has been followed in here, as the given examples are there. Okay, here we can see that the unique benefit of the SPI is that the fact that the data can be transferred without interruption. Any number of bits can be transferred. There is no such limit as we have seen in the I2C that there was only packets which is size of 8 bits only are allowed. That type of a limitation is not there with the SPI. With I2C and the UART, the data is sent in packets. Limited specific numbers are there. Start and stop conditions define whether when communication starts and when communication ends. So the data is interrupted while transmission. Always there are multiple things between the data frames. As we have seen in the I2C, there was this particular acknowledgement bit after every transmission. But here in SPI, such type of things can be avoided by having a dedicated full duplex type of communication from one side to the other side. Devices communicate via SPI. Here they use a master-slave relationship. The master is controlling the device always, whether it is in I2C or in this SPI. Master always controls the whole communication. Okay, so while we can see that slaves will be generally a sensor and some other peripheral devices, where the master will be the microcontroller hardware most of the times, which controls all the communication here. So this is the structure. So as you can see here, it is not two wired. It has 4 communication lines or 4 wires. Not exactly communication line, but 4 wires it has. Starting with MOIS, then it has MISO. Then we will be having SCLK and SSCS is the last wire. So what these lines are, one by one, anyhow in detail also will be checking out. That let me briefly full form of these things. Let me give you. First one, MOSI is master output and slave input. So this line will be always output from the master, coming out from the master and will be sent directed toward the slave. So it will be a dedicated one channel for transmitting the data for the master side. The other one is the MISO. It is master input, slave output. Here the slave will be on output transmitting side and the master will be on receiving side for this channel. So you can see that MOSI and MISO will make this particular SPI communication as full duplex. Then serial clock is there for synchronization purpose, obviously. As earlier we have seen that I2C and SPI is the serial synchronous serial type of communications. So that serial clock is for providing the synchronization. SS, or it can also be called as CS, is the chip select. It is here. Earlier we have seen in I2C that the master will be sending an address on the SPI line, such that the slave can compare that one and verify whether which slave is been invoked by the master. But here it is not like that. Directly by having a chip select, the master will enable the particular slave whichever it wants to communicate with. So that is an advantage in this type of communication, where the addressing thing, the time when it was taken for the I2C for addressing the slave, which can be avoided completely here. That is why it is a little bit faster when compared to the SPI, the I2C. SPI is faster than I2C. So just now what the abbreviations have given, MOSI, MISO, serial clock and slave select, we can read them here. MOSI is the line for the master to send the data to the slave. MISO is the line for the slave to send the data to the master. That means the master will be reading here. Serial clock is a synchronization clock here, clock signal. Always this clock will be initiated by the master. Master will be controlling the whole communication. So next is SS, slave select or chip select. This line is there for the master to select which slave it wants to send the data from or receive the data from. About the clock of the SPI, here you can see that the clock signal synchronizes the output of the data bits from the master to the sampling bits by the slave. One bit of the data is transferred each clock cycle, so the speed of data transfer is determined by the frequency of the clock. Okay, but always there will be a highest frequency limitation, which we have earlier seen in the discussion when comparing different protocols. SPI communication is always initiated by the master, since the master configures and generates the clock signals. The clock signal in SPI can be modified as two properties of a clock priority and a clock phase. So what are these clock priority and the phase we will be checking out now. So the clock priority can be set by the master to allow for a bit to be output and sampled on either the rising or the falling edge of the clock. Okay, whereas the clock phase can be used for output and sampling of the particular the data, which can occur at the first edge or second edge of the clock cycle, regardless whether it be a rising or falling edge. MOSI, the master sends the data to the slave by bit on this particular line serially through MOSI, and the slave receives the data from the master. The MOSI of master is connected to the MOSI of slave. MISO of the master is connected to the MISO of slave, and likely the clock and the slave select also will be connected in same manner. The slave can also send, I am talking about now the MISO. The slave can also send the data back to the master through MISO line in serial. The data sent from the slave back to the master is usually sent with the least significant bit first. So this particular thing, you have to always remember that which bit are sent first when it is communicated from slave side. The LSB bits are communicated first. Slave select here as it is a very important feature of this SPI that it avoids that the addressing which is generally we have seen in SPI where the addressing was done by the master such that the address of the slave is sent on that SPI line and then the slave will match its own address with that thing and on the success match it will indicate acknowledge to the master for the start of communication. But here that thing is not there, so directly there is a slave select line available. The master can choose which slave to it wants to talk to by setting this particular low voltage on this line. So it is active low particular type of a signal. In this ideal non-transmitting state, the slave select line is kept on a high voltage. The multiple slave select lines may be available in the master, which allows the multiple slave to be wired parallelly. Okay, if only one slave master is present, one slave select is present in the master, then multiple slaves can be wired to the master by daisy chaining type of configuration, which we will say check it out. Exactly what happens when the master contains only one slave select, but it has to communicate with the or connected with the many slaves. So now we'll be exactly checking out this SPI bus configuration. The simplest configuration of the SPI is that single master, single slave. But always when we embedded system, we want the master to communicate with many slaves. The number of slaves what can be connected to the master, particular master, is dependent upon this particular thing. That the limitation will be according to the load capacitance of the system, which reduces the ability of the master to accurately switch between the voltage levels. So that is only the limitation. Otherwise, the slave can connect to the any number of the master can connect to the any number of slaves whenever required. So this is a normal bus configuration. As you can see here, there are 3 slave select lines with the master: slave select 1, 2, and 3. And here they are directly parallelly connected to all the different slave 1, slave 2, slave 3. All the individual lines MISO, MOSI, clock and the slave selects are parallelly connected with the different slaves. But as I said earlier, if the master contains only one slave select, then what it has to do? So this is an example where master contains only one slave select, but it has to connect with the many slaves. So here you can see that particular daisy chain type of a communication thing. You can see the difference between the earlier this particular connection where so earlier connections you can check it out that the slave select of one is connected to the slave select of the master. One is connected to the slave select of the first slave. Similarly, of second slave select of the master is connected to the second slave, and so on. And here the clock can be seen as in shade as parallel, and even the MISO and MOSI lines are used as a bus, and they are connected to the slaves individually. But when we check it out, this particular configuration where the daisy chained connection is there, MOSI of the master is connected to the MOSI of the first slave, whereas MISO of the master is connected to the MISO of the last slave, and the different MOSI and MISO connections can be seen here in a daisy chain format. So this type of an arrangement is made into the SPI whenever there is a problem that the master contains only one slave select, but it has to communicate with the many slaves given. So how this particular MISO is being taken care of, you can check it out. MISO of the first slave is connected as the MOSI of the second slave. MISO of the second slave is connected to the MOSI of the third slave, and MISO of the third slave is connected as the MISO of the master. So it's a chained type of communication here. What are the steps of initiating the data transfer and the data communication using this SPI? So the first of all, the thing what it is done by the master is that the master sends the clock signal onto the clock serial clock line. Then the master switches the SS or CS pin to a low voltage to whichever the slave it wants to communicate with. Then what exactly happens next is the master sends the data one bit at a time to the slave on the MOSI line. The slave reads the bit as they are received. And if suppose the slave wants to transmit back, or the master demands the slave to send some data to be read by the master, the slave can again send that data back to the master on the MISO, master input slave output to particular line. So by this the full duplex communication can establish between the master and slave, where the master can transmit and the slave can transmit, and both can receive at the same time simultaneously. So that is why we are telling that this to be a full duplex type of communication. Advantages here, as you can see that it is faster because there is no start and stop bit for data to be streamed continuously without any interruptions. No complicated slave addressing system is there in this thing as we have got in the I2C. Because here the addressing is not required, direct slave select will make the particular slave active for the start of communication. Higher data transfer rates are there when compared to the I2C. Almost it is twice or more than that. Okay, separate MISO and MOSI lines can be there such that the data can be sent and received at the same time to provide a full duplex type of communication. These are the advantages of the SPI. You can see that what all the disadvantages were there in the I2C are now recovered and they are being an advantage point of the SPI here. Anyhow, the SPI also has some disadvantages that number of wires used here is more. Okay, no acknowledgement that the data has been transferred successfully or not is again another problem in the SPI. No form of error checking like priority bits in what it is there in UART and I2C. Priority check is not there in I2C, but acknowledgement is always there. So that type of check over whether the data has been successfully transmitted, received or not is not available here. It only allows a single master. That is another issue with this SPI. Unlike in I2C, we can have a multiple master, multiple sleeves. So now let us talk about this UART communication. In UART communication, the two devices having the UART facility on them can communicate directly with each other. The transmitting UART converts first the serial data coming from the devices like the CPU, which generally communicates in parallel way. So that parallel thing was first it will be converted to a serial format. Then that serial will be transmitted to the receiving UART, and the receiving UART then converts that back to the parallel such that the receiving side again, if it is a CPU, can take that parallel data and process it further if it is required. The data flow from the TX pin of the transmitting UART to the RX pin of the receiving UART. So whenever you want or you wish to communicate to two devices serially using UART, so TX pin of the first UART should be connected to the RX pin of the other UART, and the TX of the second UART should be connected to the RX of the first UART. So basically here it gives a full duplex type of communication by having a dedicated channel for transmitting from A to B, and then again similarly transmitting from B to A. Further, this is simple structure to make conductors understand the UART communication. Simple two-wire. It is one benefit is that it's a two-wire communication. One TX and one RX pin only will be there for every UART. This cross type of connection is required. Always to remember that this cross connection should be connected while communicating two devices using UART. So TX of one will go to the RX of the other. So UART transmits the data asynchronously. That's another important point to notice, because earlier two communications what we have seen, they are the serial synchronous type of communications. So this UART is a serial asynchronous type of communication. Here, instead of having the clock signal, the transmitting UART adds a start and a stop conditions, similar to what we have seen in that one in the I2C. But here, the whole thing is asynchronous, unlike the I2C where the clock was there. Here, these bits will define the beginning and end of the data, the start and stop bits, data packets here we call. So the receiving UART knows when to start reading the bits. When receiving UART detects a start bit, it starts reading incoming bits from the specific RX pin. From the RX pin will be getting the bits, so RX pin will start reading it. On the specific baud rate is also to be known and fixed in a common baud rate for both the transmitter and receiver, such that frequency of the communication can be matched. Here, with both the UARTs must be configured to transmit and receive at the same data packet structure. That is also another important point to be noted while using the UART for the serial asynchronous communication. UART that is going to transmit the data receives the data from the data bus. The data bus is used to be send the data to the UART by the another device like CPU and memory. Earlier also we have talked about this point. Data is then transferred to from the data bus to the transmitting UART in the parallel form. The transmitting UART converts that to serial and streams the serial data out from the transmitting terminal TX, and the receiving side again it will be read at that RX pin, and which will be again converted back to the parallel data as originally it was a parallel in nature. So that is about how that UART communicates. So this is how you see that parallel data coming to the UART transmitting, then serially traveling through this TX pin to the RX pin of the receiving side, and then again after getting received here, then the data is again converted as a parallel form, as you can see, bit 0 to bit 7 there. Receiving UART reads the data packets bit by bit at its RX pin. The receiving UART then converts that back the data into parallel format by moving the start bit, the parity bit, and the stop bit. Parity bit is for verifying whether the received data frame is of error free. Sometimes due to many different things involved, there are chances that the data get corrupted. It can be due to the electromagnetic interference in the surrounding system, or the line fault, or anything else which may create a data error. So data errors can be rectified if we have a parity bit also included. So that is why this UART packet structure will show you that there is an involvement of a parity bit also here. One start bit will be there in general, followed by the data frame, which will be of a standard size of some 5 to 9 bits will be there in this. After this, there will be a parity bit, and lastly there will be a 1 to 2 stop bits. Either 1 or 2 stop bits will be there. So this is a general structure or packet frame for the UART communication. So what exactly a start bit? The start bit is one which will indicate the start of communication from the transmitter side. So the UART data transmission line is normally held at a high, not transmitting data. When besides not transmitting data, to indicate that it start transmitting, that particular line, TX line from the transmitting side will be pulled low. Okay. The receiving UART detects the high to low voltage transmit on the transition, and it begins reading the data coming from the TX pin. Okay, at the particular frequency of the baud rate given. That data frame contains the actual data being transferred. It can be 5 to 9 bits of length. The data frame size, it can be 5 to 9 bits in length. Okay, if there is no priority bit used, the data frame can be of 8 bit long also. The standard it will be 8 bit long. In most cases, the data is sent with the least significant bit first. LS bit will be sent first. What is parity? About the parity bit, it is mentioned here that the parity can be either even or odd parities. The parity bit is a way of receiving the UART to tell if the at the receiving UART to tell if the data is been changed during the transmission. What exactly intended to send and what is been actually sent, whether they are same or different. Okay, like I told you that there can be electromagnetic radiations involved, there can be mismatch of the baud rate, there can be a line faults and due to long distance. These all reasons may create an error into the transmitted data frame. At 1 or more bits can get affected. Usually 1 bit parity will help you to detect a 1 bit error if it is there. The receiving UART reads a data frame if the parity bit is 0, that means if it is even parity, the 1 bit, the number of 1 bits in that should be in even number. When that parity bit is 0, the transmitting end is saying the receiver that my data frame contains a data frame in which number of 1 bits, okay, high bits are in even number. If that parity bit is 1, it follows odd parity bits tells the receiver that the number of high bits in the transmitting data frame will be in odd number. Okay, when the parity bit matches with the data, and the UART knows that there is no error and the transmission is error free. If not, if there is a mismatch, that means the transmitter is saying that I am sending an odd parity, and if the receiver receives an even parity, or it can be the other case when the transmitter is sending an even parity and the receiver receives the odd parity. This is called a mismatch here. So that time it can be identified that the transmission had an error. So either it can be if there is a correction circuit available, it can correct it by itself. Otherwise, it can request again, or it can ask for the retransmission of the data. Stop bit, obviously, it was 1 or 2 bits generally it will be there for stopping the communication. The name suggests it marks the end of the data packet. It is usually 2 bit long, but often only 1 bit is used. In order to end the transmission, the UART maintains the data line at high voltage. So low voltage will generally start the communication, indicates the start of communication, and here stop bit is logic 1 indicates the stop of the communication. These are the steps involved in carrying out the UART data transmission, obviously transmission reception. The transmitting UART receives the data in parallel from the data bus from the CPU.
Then the transmitting UART will make that one into a serial by and also adding the start bit, parity bit, and stop bit into the data frame. Okay, and after doing that, when it can be something like this, you can check it out. The frame structure is shown. After that, then the entire packet is sent serially from the transmitting UART to the receiving UART. The receiving UART samples the data at a predefined or pre-configured baud rate, which both the transmitter and the receiver has to agree. The baud rate for communication, whenever it is there, generally UART communications, we program the baud rate for transmission and the reception. Generally, many computers will be having a specific baud rate fixed for the receiving COM ports, UART ports. The receiving UART discards the start bit, parity bits, and the stop bit after receiving the data frame, and then just that data frame will be taken and transmitted back to the parallel format to be given to the receiving terminal. It can be a terminal device there or a CPU or a modem there, which can be connected for the further access of that data. Advantages of the UART. The first one is that it is a two-wire type of structure, as similar to the I2C, whereas in SPI we got that 4 wires were there. So wire wise it is very simple, only 2 wires are there. No clock signal is necessary, as the UART is a asynchronous type of communication. If I have mentioned that earlier, okay, otherwise UART stands for Universal Asynchronous Receive Transmit. Hope it is already known to you. Obviously the name itself says that it is an asynchronous receive and transmit. So it has a parent bit to allow the error checking. The structure of the data packet can be changed as long as both the sides are set it for it. So that means how much a data packet should be sent. That if it is set in the both transmitter and the receiver, any length of structure data can be transmitted. Well documented about this one. A lot of literature is there, and very properly and very conveniently it is used in many different devices. Even 8051, as you know already, it contains a UART on itself. But TXD and RXD pins are available in the 8051. Widely documented and widely used method is this UART. Some disadvantages of the UART is that the size of the data frame is limited to the maximum of 9 bits. So earlier I told you that the structure can be changed, but the frame limit is up to 9 bits only. Okay, that is one limitation here. It does not support multiple slaves or multiple masters. Okay, it is one-to-one type of communication. A baud rate for each UART must be within 10% of each other. Okay, the baud rate matching is very much necessary. Some application and uniqueness about the UART is that UART or Universal Asynchronous Receiver Transmitter is a dedicated hardware associated with the serial communication. The hardware for the UART can be a circuit integrated on the microcontroller, as we have on the 8051 also, or it can have a separate dedicated IC for that UART operations. In a contrast to the SPI and I2C, which are just communication protocols, UART is one of the simple and most commonly used serial communication technique. Today, UART is being used mainly in applications like GPS receivers, Bluetooth modules, GSM, GPRS, modems, wireless communication systems, RFID based application. Almost most of the embedded system applications you will be finding that UART is being used for communicating different modules of the embedded system. Many sensors many times also will be used connected using this UART terminal. So that will be it for this today's lecture. Thank you, and see you in the next lecture.